Welcome, everyone. My name is Mauricio Kobian from the UCLA International Education Office, which is our one-stop shop for undergraduate study abroad opportunities at UCLA. And at our office, you can consult with our study abroad advisors, coordinators, and we can also connect you with peer who have studied abroad already. We refer to them as our study abroad returnees, and they're also folks who can help you navigate, what it might be like to study abroad. Today, I'll be leading this Study Abroad 101 as part of our Global Learning Opportunities Week, during which we are showcasing different types of programs that are offered, a number of study abroad related resources, as well as funding opportunities. This session is recorded and will be available on the on-demand section of our Global Learning Opportunities Week website, which would be at ieo.ucla.edu/GLOW. And GLOW is running from October 11th through the 15th. For today's 101 agenda, we've just had our brief welcome, and further we'll explain the program types that we offer as part through the UCLA International Education Office and how credit works with these, followed by ways to fund study abroad, as well as the cost of the individual programs. And we will then conclude with how and when to apply to these programs. But before we get to the core content, in the context of study abroad and what is going on with COVID-19, for today's session, we primarily want to share that after an 18-month hiatus, as of fall 2021, study abroad programs are running in person once again, and we expect subsequent terms to run barring any worsening conditions abroad. If you'd like to learn more about how programs are running, what we're doing in terms of safety precautions within the UC system to ensure these programs are safe for faculty and for our students, you can check out our 15-minute presentation on COVID-19 on our GLOW page, which will address the topic in much more detail. The other thing in the context of this pandemic that we want to address is that passport processing is taking quite some time. The pandemic has left the U.S. Department of State with an extensive backlog of passport applications. So it is currently taking approximately 4 to 5 months for U.S. citizens to get a passport from door to door. So we encourage students who can apply right now to do so or to renew their passport as soon as possible. There are a few programs that might require students to get a visa before their departure, which means that they might have to get their passport, access to their passport much sooner before the departure. So this information is for US citizens traveling on an American passport, but we expect similar delays may be occurring for other nationalities. So check in with the respective consulate or embassy from which you're going to get your passport. Program types. UCLA students can experience a spectrum of study abroad opportunities today. There is no one type of study abroad any longer, and no one set time to study abroad for everyone. One of the most common or traditional opportunities that has always been offered is what we describe as the university immersion. This is where a student attends a school like University College London in the UK, and they take whichever courses they want with local professors and local students at that school. A mechanical engineer, for example, can take 2 engineering courses towards their major and then 2 courses towards their GE requirements on this program, or they can take all 4 engineering courses. You can pick whatever you want. Another model that we have is the UCLA faculty-led programs. This is where, alternatively, students can go on a 3 to 5 week long summer program with a UCLA professor and take 2 to 3 classes in a more experiential learning environment than any lecture UCLA could offer. One of the examples that I like to showcase here is, for example, when one of our history professors takes students on a walking tour of Paris. There's no traditional classroom here. Every day is a walking tour of Paris. And these are open to all majors, even if there's not a design, it's not designed for any one specific major. There are internal research programs abroad as well. These are newer models of studying abroad where you can intern for academic credit and make progress towards your degree. There are options where you can, let's say, intern at a startup in Berlin, do business in Shanghai, or simply conduct field work or take an ecology course in Costa Rica. This is, I would say, this covers 90% of the types of programs that exist, but there are also a number of exceptions out there in hybrid versions of what I just described. So this is sort of the big picture of what's offered in terms of study abroad. Now, most programs are not designed around specific majors. That means that you are not obligated to study abroad in a particular, in your major. You can also work on GEs, on a minor, foreign language, technical breadth, if that's applicable to you. You can just work on units, personal, professional development. And we showcase this point here because often students come to us with something like, I'm a psychology major. What is the program that I need to do? And it, just doesn't quite work that way. There are programs that do offer psychology courses, but that same student could just work on something else. In either case, you're still making progress towards your degree. So we encourage students to expand their search beyond simply major related programs. On that same topic, not all programs are going to share the same structure. Every single program is going to be unique in terms of these categories that you see here. So the living setup, some programs are going to offer homestay, some of them are going to offer shared apartments, others are going to offer dorms. Each one is going to be unique. Sometimes they're going to give you an option, and then sometimes it's just a set housing for that particular program. Same thing with meals. Sometimes meals might be included as part of a homestay, but oftentimes you're going to see study abroad programs to be self-catered. That means you're preparing your own meals or you might be eating out. Very few programs have something like a meal plan. It's a lot less common in places outside of the United States. Who you're studying with is going to vary as well. On some programs, you're taking classes exclusively with your UC peers, others with local students, and others it's international students from all over the world. That's going to vary where you're studying as well. Sometimes it's at a local university, sometimes it's with researchers that are being contracted by the UC system. That's going to vary. Program lengths as well as costs are also going to vary very widely from one program to another. Now to get into the programs themselves. So what are these programs called? First one that I want to showcase is UCLA Travel Study. These are summer only, and these are the 3 to 5 week experiential learning programs that are led by UCLA professors. Here, generally, you're taking 2 classes on average, but some programs might allow you to take a 3rd class. I would say that UCLA Travel Study is best for not needing to petition for any credit. So everything that you see on the individual program pages, you already know what you're going to get, and it's automatic. If it says you satisfy XGE, you're going to satisfy XGE without any petition process. Same thing with foreign language, diversity requirement, writing 2, as well as major and minor requirements. If the program that you're going on is one of the participating programs for that respective major and minor. Now, to give you a more vivid picture of what a UCLA Travel Study program looks like, here's a sample program for UCLA Travel Study. In the Footsteps of Hans Christian Andersen is the title of this program, which takes you to Copenhagen for 1 summer, 4 weeks long. Some of the highlights of this program would be that you get to live in student residences, and you're sharing the facilities of that student residences. So it might be a couple of rooms with shared kitchen, for example. These are all self-catered. And there's a number of excursions that are programmed throughout your time there. When it comes to coursework, you're taking 2 classes, so pretty standard. You're taking Scandinavian 50W and another Scandinavian upper division course, which you have here, Introduction to Scandinavian Literature and Culture, and a crime literature course where you're studying things like Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Here, on this particular program, you can satisfy the diversity requirement for letters and science, School of Music, public affairs. And for all students, you could satisfy writing 2 and or your literary and cultural analysis GE. So this gives you a more specific picture of what a UCLA travel study program could look like. Now, another category here that we have is the UCLA Global Cities, and there are three options for this. This is where a very unique, I would describe this as an exchange cohort program. There's where you have a group of UCLA students that are going to go to one of three cities, either Milan, Barcelona, and Amsterdam, and you get to pick which city you want to go to. So all of you will go to that city for a summer and take courses there with local students. There's a social program where you get to meet some of those local students who will also be on your program, and you're taking classes at that university for the summer. You spend a couple of weeks there, and after that, you all come back, including the local students, to UCLA, and you take courses during summer session C. And this time you reciprocate. This time you show them the ropes around Los Angeles and UCLA. So it's a really cool exchange program that happens during the summer. I would say the UCLA Global Cities tracks are good for students who are interested in taking upper division courses in communications, economics, management, global studies, film, history, political science, or sociology, as those are the courses that are generally offered during the summer sessions part. They're also great for students who are seeking to satisfy GEs, the foreign language requirement, and or the diversity requirement. So let's dive into one of these specific programs. The University of Pompeu Fabra. So this is one of the three options that is available for UCLA Global Cities. On this program, you're spending 4 weeks during the summer in Barcelona, and afterwards you're going to take 6 weeks back at UCLA. Highlights of this program include you get to live in student residence abroad, or you can do also your independent housing if you would prefer that. Both are self-catered, and they include that social program that I was describing, where you get to meet some of the local students, and then they come back to Los Angeles with you, and you get to take courses during UCLA summer sessions. The coursework here is limited, and it's very select courses that you're going to be taking at Pompeu Fabra, and very select classes that would be available during UCLA summer sessions. On this program, like I said already, you get to satisfy some GEs, and you might be able to satisfy major minor requirements, but that would be through a petition process. The next type of program that we have is the UCLA Global Internship Program. This is summer only, and where you get to intern abroad for academic credit, and you take an online class as well. I would say that the Global Internship Program is best for students of the following majors and minors: economics, education, engineering, all of them, global health, global studies, international area studies, IDS, political science, and public affairs. And so those are the majors that it's best for, because there are certain tracks that are specially created for these majors. But there are 2 tracks that are available to any UCLA student. And by the way, in terms of locations where you can intern on the UCLA Global Internship Program for summer 2022, and these locations are going to vary depending on the individual tracks that are available, but the locations are going to include Bali, Berlin, Bogota, Buenos Aires, Cape Town, Ho Chi Minh City, London, Medellin, Osaka, Prague, and there's also a virtual option. So diving a little bit deeper, one of the sample tracks that's available, and I'm showcasing the Global Affairs track because it's one of the ones that's available to any student. It's designed for students who are global studies, IDS, IAS, global health. But again, anybody can go on this program, whether simply because you want or need upper division units, or because you want to do it for personal/professional development. So specifically for the Global Affairs track, there are a few cities where you can do this: Bogota, Medellin, Buenos Aires, Cape Town, Ho Chi Minh City, London, or it has one of the virtual options. This takes place over the course of summer session A, and it's 8 weeks on site, but the total length of the program is 10 weeks because 2 of those weeks is one of the, the online course that you're completing, but it's 8 weeks on site. Highlights of this is that you can intern abroad with a focus on global affairs. You get to live in student residences with other interns that are at these specific sites and other students. It's self-catered, and there are excursions that are part of the program. In terms of what to expect with regards to placements, what's available for the global affairs track is placements in the fields of global health. We have law, economics. You can do this at NGOs, nonprofits, government and politics, advocacy groups, social work think tanks, and there are a few limited urban planning options as well. Last but not least, UCEAP. The reason why I showcase UCEAP at the end is because all the other options that I've highlighted so far are pretty easy to define. You know, we had the faculty-led programs, we had that special summer exchange cohort option, we had interning for academic credit, and when it comes to UCAP, there is no one way to describe it. The best way we can do so is saying that UCAP is a combination of different options. But what is unique about UCAP relative to everything else is that for those students who are seeking to study abroad during the academic year, this is your option. So this is the one that offers fall, winter, spring, and year-long options. They do offer dozens of summer options as well. But you know, the academic studying abroad during the academic year is one of the things that UCAP specializes in. The other unique thing is that this is the kind of program where you can become a local university student by following that traditional immersion model. But they also have dozens of summer school options. They also have research, field work, intern, and UC Center programs. These are programs that are specially designed for UC students. So if I had to summarize it in some way, you know, why should you choose UCAP versus other options? Usually it's for students who are seeking, you know, program options. They do offer 140 plus programs. And for those students who are seeking specifically non-summer opportunity, I would say this is your go-to type of program. Now, as I shared, UCAP has 150 plus programs in various models. So when it comes to giving you a deeper dive for sample options, I'm going to pick two, but even that's not going to cover the full range of what UCAP would generally offer you. I'll start off with Yonsei University. So this is that traditional immersion model where you're taking courses at a local university with local students, local professors. You get to live in student dorms, which are self-catered. There's excursions as well included in this. And this is one of the options where you get to set up, or you have the option to secure your own internship. This is something that students would do once they're already on site. When it comes to coursework, you're taking 4 to 5 classes from the vast coursework that's offered at Yonsei University. So imagine, you know, an exchange student coming to UCLA and, you know, they're asking, well, what is it that I can take? They can take whatever that UCLA offers, which is hundreds of courses. In that same manner, that's the same thing with when you study at Yonsei University. Whatever they offer, it's available to you. What's nice about Yonsei University is that they have extensive coursework in English, so there's no language required for this program. But if you're fluent in Korean and you want to take courses taught in Korean, you also have that option on this program. As I shared, you have the ability to arrange also research opportunities or independent studies. You can substitute one of your classes for something like this. And in terms of time frame, it's offered as a fall semester, a spring semester, or a year-long option. So a bit on the different spectrum here. Made in Italy, this is not taking courses at a local university. Instead, they're local instructors that might be affiliated with a local university, but not necessarily. So it's a specially designed program for UC students. This one is titled Made in Italy. You get to study abroad in Florence, and there's a different variations of this. They have a summer program, short-term summer program, a fall quarter option, a winter quarter option, and a spring semester option. Each one of those is going to offer different coursework. Each one of these is going to offer different coursework here you can see some of the sample courses that are offered, and they're going to, what's offered in the summer is not necessarily what's going to be offered in the fall. So just to give you an idea of what you can take, they have some art classes, marketing coursework, sustainability coursework, fashion and media. There's even a course that focuses on, bread, wine, and olive oil. What's nice about something like this Made in Italy program is that the excursions that are built into this program are often tied to the courses. So it's a little bit more interactive. So, let's say with the bread, wine, and olive oil course, likely you would be visiting some of these production places. They might end up taking you to, olive oil production company or a place where they're making bread. So that's one of the really cool things about a program like Made in Italy. So in terms of, how does the UCLA quarter system work with these terms abroad? Simply put, I'd probably say you don't have to worry too much about that. And I'll give you a breakdown here. Anytime you're doing a summer program, it kind of doesn't matter when it starts, when it ends, because it's going to be during UCLA's summer term. Anytime you see something that's titled fall, it's usually going to refer to a fall semester program, which starts sometime in August and ends sometime mid to late December. And that means that you're only away fall quarter. If you see something that's listed as spring, more often than not, it's going to refer to a spring semester program. There, you are out winter and spring quarter, which by itself is not a bad thing, but it probably would require a little bit more planning since you might not be getting the same number of classes that you would if you were staying instead at UCLA. You might get the same number of units if that's what you're worried about, but in terms of number of courses, you might not get the same. So it requires perhaps a little bit more planning, but doable for some majors, not all. There are a dozen quarter only options. Programs are actually fall quarter length. There's one or two that winter quarter length and about the same that are spring quarter. And usually the quarter length programs are the ones that are going to be those UC Center programs where you're taking courses only with your UC peers because they're designed for the UC system, which is on the quarter system. One other option that we actually won't focus in today's presentation, but it's important for you to understand that it exists, is anything that's outside of the UC system. So anything that we're not covering today, you do have that option as well. We refer to these as non-UC programs. And the main things that we want students to consider should they pursue these opportunities is that unfortunately, there's no guarantee of the credit transferring to UCLA. Often students are okay, but we just would never be able to offer any kind of guarantee of that credit transferring. Unfortunately, students cannot carry their UCLA financial aid on a program, on a non-UC program, and you would need to take a planned academic leave. That's simply an administrative process. It's pretty straightforward. You unenroll from the university and you get to come back once your program is over without any sort of issues of readmission. I would say that non-UC programs are generally best for students who do not depend on UCLA financial aid and cannot find the right program within the UC offerings. Something we like to clarify for students is that, transferring of courses is not necessarily, actually, it's not the same as satisfying requirements. Sometimes these terms are interchanged, and we just want to clarify that for students. All UC programs that we've discussed so far guarantee that the courses will transfer to UCLA. So this is where you get an assurance that it'll come in as UC units, whether it's lower division or upper division, which you don't get that same guarantee with the non-UC programs. And for programs that are not offering UCLA courses, most notably, this includes UC EAP offerings. If you're seeking to satisfy degree requirements, you would have to petition for, for these respective degree requirements. So if you're seeking major minor credit, you would petition that with that respective department. If you're seeking GE, foreign language, diversity writing 2, you would petition that with your college and school. It's pretty, more or less a straightforward petition process. It's not always approved, but that's why it's on a case-by-case basis. to give you a summary of this credit, because I know it can be a little bit overwhelming. With any of the UCLA programs and UCEAP, the courses are guaranteed to transfer. Again, not the case with non-UC programs. And if you are seeking to satisfy degree requirements, which you don't have to necessarily to study abroad, with UCLA Travel Study, there's no petition because they're UCLA classes. There's partial petition for global cities and the global internship programs. Some stuff is pre-approved already. Other things you would still have to petition. With UCAP, it's definitely a petition process as it would be with non-UC. Funding and program costs. One of the most common questions, naturally, when it comes to financial aid is, can I use my UCLA Financial Aid for a study abroad program? The answer is yes. Eligible students can use their UCLA Financial Aid to cover the cost of any UC-affiliated study abroad programs. Depending on the individual student, and everyone's going to be different, this would be composed of grants, loans, scholarships to, again, varying degrees. I would say generally students should ensure that they're taking a minimum of 8 units for financial aid to be triggered, and ensure that you complete your FAFSA DREAM Act application by the priority deadline. So that's very, very key. There are scholarship opportunities available that students can apply to. The most common type of scholarship would naturally be need-based. That's probably going to make up the most of the scholarship opportunities, but there are also identity-based scholarships and merit-based scholarships that are available. Here are some of the sample opportunities. UCLA offers, and when I say UCLA, actually, that's through our office. We offer, I would say, a half dozen types of scholarships, and individuals scholarships, there's a lot more than that. That range anywhere between $1,000 to $5,000. UCAP and the travel study programs with UCLA professors, they also offer their own scholarships, and they can range from anywhere between $1,000 to $8,000. And you might already be noticing this, but I would say that scholarships is a way to chip away at the cost. Rarely would we see a scholarship that covers the full amount of scholarship of the cost of the program by itself. Though, a financial aid student might be able to, cover, let's say, half of it or a portion of it with grants. And a scholarship would be, a way to cover the rest of it so that, you don't have to take out those loans. So, but rarely we would see a scholarship that just, covers the entire thing by itself. There are external scholarships as well. If you're a Pell Grant recipient, memorize the name Gilman. That is the most important scholarship for Pell Grant recipients. It's one of the most generous and, scholarships out there offered by the U.S. Department of State. Diversity Abroad Diversity Abroad is an organization within the world of study abroad, and they offer scholarships. Because we're a partner, you do have access to whatever scholarships they would offer. And if you're interested in learning more about scholarships, I would say your best place for that would be our website, ieo.ucla.edu // scholarships. So what do these programs cost? Often when students ask me this, I say, it really depends. And it's not because I'm avoiding the question. There's a huge range between all of our study abroad programs. So I'll start with summer. It is one of our most popular terms. And so here are 3 programs to give you a range of what to expect. One of our most popular programs is a program in Spain with UCLA professors where you're working on your foreign language requirement. So this is 5-week programs. You're getting 8 units, and this is a budget of what the program costs. This is from beginning to end. So this doesn't include your souvenirs, but it includes, your meals, your accommodations, your tuition, your insurance, a budget for your round trip airfare. And this, this is what the figure comes out to. And by the way, when I say a budget for your airfare, they're estimating that you would spend about $1,200. If you end up finding a great deal for $800, round trip to Spain, that's money that you just saved on your own, right? You don't actually have to spend the full $1,200. So there are certain costs that are fixed, but there are some of the costs that, the program is saying that this is a budget for these things. So there are going to be some fluctuations between these figures. On the other, so, I would say that that's the average cost of a summer program. On the other hand, there are ways to make it more affordable. Going to study abroad in Mexico for the same amount of time for more units is about $2,000 less expensive because it is a more affordable study abroad destination. On the other hand, on the other spectrum, also one of our most popular programs, the UCAP physics programs, you're spending 8 weeks in Europe, you're getting more units, and it is significantly more expensive. So again, I just want to showcase this to, relay to you all that, if your friend says, I'm going to go on the Dublin physics program, and you're like, oh, let me check out study abroad, what? That is a pretty large figure. Don't let that scare you because there are other more affordable ways to study abroad. Again, studying abroad in Mexico, about, more than half, it's about half the cost of that program. So explore, your full range of options. Studying abroad during the academic year, I would say it's one of the more affordable options because you're not adding an additional term. You're just overlapping it with what you would have been, doing by staying at UCLA. So here I can compare it a little bit more, and that's why I'm plugging in here what it costs to be a student on fall quarter at UCLA on campus. So this is the estimated budget, which includes health insurance, your weekend meals, housing, and things like that, and obviously in books. So of course, there's a budget for that, and for some of you this will be more expensive. Some of you might be less expensive. So comparing it to study abroad opportunities, if you were to study abroad at ICU in Japan, one of the universities there, you get to spend 2 additional weeks studying. You're taking about the same number of units, and it's roughly pretty close to about the same cost of the program, and the same cost as studying abroad here on campus. And it already includes a budget for your round trip airfare. So if you receive financial aid is going to put together a package to cover this. Again, that would be a combination of grants, scholarships, and loans, depending on individual student situation. On the other hand, there are more expensive programs where you're spending more and more time abroad. Going to Korea, 17 weeks, way more units, and it starts being more expensive. But there are also other ways to study abroad in Europe, for example, one of the most popular destinations to study abroad, and do it relatively more affordable. I say more affordable, even though it is one of the more expensive options here. But for example, programs in the UK, which is also a very popular destination, could end up being significantly more than this. You're looking at more of a $20,000, $23,000, $24,000 program. So there is a huge range as well during studying abroad during the academic term, during the academic year. When and how to apply. So their applications are going to be open, their registration is going to be opening during the fall. For UCEAP, those applications are now open. For our global internship program, that's going to open October 25th. Actually, let me take a step back. UCAP programs are now open, and the deadline is going to vary from one program to another. But our earliest deadlines are going to start in December for some of the Japan programs, but most of them are going to end up being sometime around January. And this would be, all of this information is going to be for summer 2021 and summer 2022 and fall 2022 programs. So deadlines are going to vary by program. Global Internship Program opens October 25th, and the deadline is pretty soon, actually, December 5th. Global Cities and Travel Study, those share the same dates, so they're going to open November 18th, and they're going to close around April 1st. So what are the actual steps to applying? Number one is attending a study abroad info session, which you are already doing. So you've already checked off step 1 here. Next step will be to clarify your goals. 3, research your programs and funding options. 4, consulting advisors and returnees. And step 5, actually submitting that application online. We'll dig deeper into these individual steps. So for step two, clarifying your goals. This is where it's important to, ask yourself, what are your study abroad goals? And it can be any of these, because this is what's going to dictate, what might be the right program or the available program for you. Is the importance that you satisfy degree requirements? Is it that you learn a foreign language, that you research or intern? Is it I need to go to Chile no matter what? Or is it timing? You want to spend very little time abroad, or you want to spend a full year abroad. These are the things that are going to dictate what program you sign up for. One of the really cool new tools that we've developed, there's a page on our website titled How to Choose Your Program. You can access it by going to this bit.ly /HTCHYP, all capitalized. So how to choose your program. And what's really cool about these tools is that we develop a series of questions that you can almost use as a checklist to kind of, go through the process, what are the most important things for you, and slowly start, refining, what might be the best study abroad program for you. A very common question that we often get is, what is the best time to study abroad? Or sometimes even, what is the most popular time to study abroad? And while perhaps one of the more popular times to study abroad might be junior year, that's not necessarily the right time for everybody. So there is no one best time for all students. You can study abroad as early as summer after your first year here, or as late as your senior year. Sometimes it's your specific major structure that might dictate an easiest time to study abroad. So that could be true. Often for things like this, we encourage students to consult their academic advisors to help them navigate, what might be the best time for them to study abroad. For step three, we always, when it comes to researching the programs, we would say that for UCAP, visit their own website to start browsing programs. For all other UC programs that we've showcased so far, that would be our website, ieo.ucla.edu. Next, you could also further consult with the IEO team. Sometimes you might, explore these websites and still have more questions that are left unanswered. That's where drop-in advising comes into play. We'll give you a little bit more information about towards the end of the session, or our one-on-one advising as well. This is also the stage where you might want to explore scholarships, which, we've already given you the link, but here it is again, ieo.ucla.edu/scholarships. Step 4, consult advisors and returnees. So along the process, you probably want to consult your academic department, whether that's your major department and or your school advisors. They're the ones that can give you, whether you have any specific restrictions when it comes to study abroad or other factors that need to be considered. If at any point you will need to petition for credit, those are the folks that can help you out with that process. During this time, you might also consider reaching out to returnees. While we have a team of study abroad advisors that specialize on specific programs or regions of the world, we didn't get a chance to study abroad in every single one of these programs in every single one of these countries. Our personal experience only goes a certain way. That's why, when students come back from their study abroad experience, they often say, hey, I want to connect with students. If they have any questions, I'd be happy to tell them about my experience. So connecting with recent returnees, as we describe them, is probably the best way to get a better feel of what, any specific program might be like. But also keep in mind, take it with a grain of salt, right? One's individual experience on one program could be very different from another student on that same program. But it's a way to just get a little bit more feedback. When it comes to the submission of the actual online application, all of these are online. For UCAP, you're going to do that on their own website. There's a 2-part online application process for them. When it comes to eligibility criteria, generally for most of our programs, it isn't complicated. There are exceptions, but often there's no personal statement or essay or letter of recommendation that you have to do. There are some that do, but I just kind of want to give you a bigger picture of it. So for UCAP, there will be a minimum GPA for individual programs, but if there's any additional eligibility criteria, it's going to vary from one program to another, but most it's just the GPA. For the global internship program, the application process is going to be on our website, IEO. It is a registration process. So you're primarily registering, signing up, and you have to be a UCLA student. There is a minimum GPA requirement, and you have to have a specific class, a minimum class standing. UCLA travel study, also registration on our website. And for that one, you simply have to be 18 years of age or older with a high school diploma. For the UCLA Global Cities program, IEO website, there's an online application process, and you have to be a UCLA student and meet a minimum GPA. So what's the next step? We're approaching the end of our session here. There is no one set, order of steps for every student. You're going to find yourself at a different, each one of you is going to find yourself at a different stage. And some steps might not be important or apply to you at all. If you know you want to do something specific already, you can go straight, to the application or registration process once those are open. Or, you might just be at the stage where you're starting to explore. So, these are different stages that, each one of you might be going to, but ultimately you would, go to the apply and register process. So, I kind of just put them in this area because, it's going to look very different for every single person. Though something that I might encourage, just because we're, this is part of our GLOW week, is attend other GLOW sessions. Some of the topics here are covered pretty generally. We have major specific sessions that are taking place during GLOW. There's a session, how to satisfy GEs abroad specifically. There's funding sessions, scholarship sessions. So there's a couple of other opportunities that you can just dive deeper into these topics. So that might be a next step if you're still at the exploration program stage of this process. One thing that is also equally important is, often students might not think that, navigating your identities as an undergraduate is one thing. Taking that in a broad environment often, affects or, students in a way that is unexpected. So we put together a resource here of different web pages for specific identities, some of the most common ones that students come to us with questions about. So we put these resources that are primarily just questions that you might want to ask yourself, and our study abroad advisors are open to have conversations with you about, some of these topics. So this is primarily to ask, oneself, how will or won't my identities interact with my experience abroad? These are not all the identities that, everyone's going to share. But these are some of the starting points that, students might want to consider exploring. To access these, that would be our website /diversity. And finally, to get a hold of us, right now, we're still in a virtual advising environment. So the best way to reach us is ieo.ucla.edu /contact. That's where you can do drop-in advising. We host those Monday through Thursday. And if then that conversation requires a more detailed advising session, you could schedule those one-on-one advisings with our study abroad advisors. At some point during the fall quarter, we will actually open up our doors, our physical space again. We're really looking forward to that. So expect to see that very, very soon. We are located in Murphy Hall, 1332. Here's our phone number, email address. You might also consider following us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Our handles at UCLA IEO. So if you want to stay up to date when scholarship deadlines are coming up or even application deadlines, often we post those updates on our social media. So that's a good way to stay in touch with us. This wraps up our Study Abroad 101 session. Thank you for logging in. We hope that we've addressed most of your general questions, that we've dispelled myths, and that you are more excited about studying abroad during your time at UCLA. Please check out the other sessions as I shared that go into more details about the programs, funding, and identities. These will all be available in the coming days on our Global Learning Opportunities Week site, ieo.ucla.edu /glow, or our YouTube channel by searching for UCLA Study Abroad. Thank you. Have a good day.